Today is June 17, 2025, and we're at the Hudsonville residence of David Kinsman, who served in the U.S. Air Force, and we're doing a veterans history, oral history interview. And my name, as the interviewer and camera operator, is Wallace Erickson. And I'm a volunteer interviewer with the History Department at Grand Valley State University. And as I said, this is a project, a Veterans History Project, in conjunction with the Library of Congress, the Veterans History Project. David, what is your full name?
David Harvey Kinsman, Sr.
And your date of birth?
April 28, 1955.
And your place of birth?
Did it Highland Park, Michigan. I get confused with Hazel Park sometimes.
David, where did you go to high school?
I went to Clawson High School in Clawson, Michigan.
And when did you graduate?
1973.
How many siblings did you have in your family?
I have 4 sisters, no brothers.
And what did your parents do for occupation?
My dad, when I was growing up, was a barber who later on went to work for the Michigan Department of Corrections and became a corrections officer. And my mother was primarily a housewife, although she did work for a while for Sears while the kids were all in high school.
And did you go to college after high school or right away, or?
Yes, I went down to Florida to Warner Southern College, which was in Lake Wales, Florida. I attended there for a couple years. And while there and in college is when I joined the Air Force. Then while in the Air Force, I went to Northern Michigan University, got my associates in criminal justice, and then my bachelor's in criminal justice. When I got out of the Air Force, I went to grad school at Western Michigan University, got my master's in community agency counseling, and then I went on for a specialist degree in substance abuse counseling.
And when did you enlist in the Air Force?
1976. I remember my wife and I were expecting our first child, and I realized at that time that there was never going to be enough money to go to school and support my family at the same time. And I'd always wanted to serve my country, so I started looking at the services. And in the Air Force, they offered a GI Bill and a guaranteed base, and I would be able to go to, if I could get a guaranteed base, I'd probably be able to go to school at night, and so I joined the Air Force with the intention of going up to K.I. Sawyer in the UP and going to Northern Michigan University, and that worked out really well.
Where were you living at the time when you entered the Air Force? Were you in Florida?
I was in Florida at the time, and we were expecting our first child, and I went in about 6 weeks after our first son was born. I went into basic training. We moved back to Michigan. I moved Judy and David in with their parents while I went off to basic training.
And where was your basic training?
Basic training was at Highland Air Force Base in Texas.
And how long were you there then?
San Antonio, I believe we were there for probably about 10 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. And then from there, I went to Keesler Air Force Base for my tech training, which was for personnel. Was there for maybe another 10 or 12 weeks. And then the rest of my time was at K.I. Sawyer.
Going back to your basic military training and boot camp.
Yes.
Do you remember and how did you feel the first few days in boot camp?
It was interesting. Of course, looking back, you maybe understand it a little bit better, but they're trying very hard to take all these individuals and turn them into a group that worked as a group to support the group and to do what was in the best group's interest. So it's a pretty difficult job, I guess. So in the beginning, I think there's a real struggle for that independence and for you to realize I'm one of a team here. But very soon, I think they get through pretty quickly in basic.
Do you remember any of your drill instructors? Anything specific there?
Yes, I do. I remember two drill instructors very well, although I don't remember their names. One was a Texan, great big guy. He was our primary drill instructor, and it's not appropriate probably for this, what the kind of things that he would call us, but he was extremely good at what he did and had us turned us into, I think, a team very quickly. Working with him was another instructor, and I don't remember her name, but she too was, I think in 1976, that was at a time when women were becoming a bigger part of the military and trying to change a little bit that mindset that women were inferior. And so she played a very important role in you understanding that her rank and how you had to respect that rank regardless of you think that she's a woman. And so I think that was part of that change during that period of time, or at least as I remember it.
Remember how many recruits were in your basic military class?
Golly, I do not remember. I've got a picture of them sitting over there. I'm going to say there had to be about 35, 40, somewhere around there.
Hey, after basic training, you went to Sawyer Air Force Base at Biloxi,
Yes.
Mississippi?
Yes. I went to Biloxi, and it was an 8-week training course, might have been 9 weeks. And I believe that, I think, yeah, that was about 9 weeks. It was interesting. I thought of something that occurred during that period of time of basic training and tech school. And as you know, at that time, we weren't experiencing a great relationship with the public. The public was pretty angry still about Vietnam. And during basic training and in tech school, we were told not to wear a uniform out and about for your own safety, because sometimes people, when they thought you were a soldier, they were going after you. So it was pretty interesting, and a good friend of mine, right out of tech school, when we got up to K.I. Sawyer, actually got beat up. He was in his uniform, and a group of kids, college students, who were angry, but took it out on him. And obviously he had nothing to do with that, but it was a different time than we are experiencing right now, where the public and the community seems to support the service members a lot more than during Vietnam and right post-Vietnam.
And was your wife with you then at Biloxi? Or?
Yes, I was lucky enough to actually live off base during training, which most guys didn't get to do that. But I was already married, and so I got to live off base. I only lived on base during basic training. The rest of my time, I lived off base and went back and forth to base to go to school and to go to work.
Now, your choice of Sawyer Air Force Base back in Michigan, the Upper Peninsula,
Yes.
was that part of your contract in joining the Air Force?
It was a very important item for me at that time. Was I knew that I wanted to go to school, and I knew that having a family and being married, that it was difficult to do. When I joined the Air Force in Florida, I was working for the state of Florida as a child care worker in a juvenile detention center. And at the time, there were a lot of grown men that were supporting their families on about $10,000 a year. That's about what you made when you were working for the state of Florida. And at the time, I realized I could not go to school and support my family at the same time. So when I started talking to the different services, the Air Force offered a guaranteed base and a guaranteed job. If you could score well enough on your testing, if you had to pass. First you had to test high enough, and then you had to pass all your courses. But if you did that, you got this guaranteed base. So I wanted to get back to Michigan, and I wanted to get close to a university where I could go to school at night. And so the Air Force offered me that opportunity with a guaranteed base at K.I. Sawyer, right outside of Marquette, maybe 25 miles outside of Marquette, Northern Michigan University. And the GI Bill started picking up immediately as soon as I was in the Air Force and serving. And so they started picking up the cost of my school. I was going to school 2 and 3 nights a week throughout my entire Air Force career. Got my associates in criminal justice with a minor in sociology, and then I got my bachelor's in criminal justice, all while in the service. When I got out of the service, the GI Bill continued to provide for my education. They paid for my all my graduate work. I completed my master's in community agency counseling at Western Michigan University. They then also paid for my specialist degree, and I was all set, and the GI Bill would have paid for my PhD. However, I got an opportunity to go to work for the feds in U.S. probation, and realized very quickly when I went to work for U.S. probation that there was not enough time in the day to do that job and go to school at night. So I stopped at that point. But I believe that they would have picked up even at when I retired. I considered going back to get the PhD, and I believe that they would have picked up the rest of my education had I wanted to do that.
Going back to the Air Force duties, once you're at K.I. Sawyer, what did you specialize in as far as military duties?
I was in outbound assignments, so I was a personnel specialist, and within personnel there are many, many jobs. And one of those jobs, and I think probably one of the most stressful and important one of those many jobs, was outbound assignments. In outbound assignments, our responsibilities included advising airmen and officers when they were getting an assignment and what they needed to do to go about getting that assignment, and what they had to do to actually get to that base, and to cut orders and to provide all of that assistance in getting there.
So this would be transfers then?
Yes, people that
Sawyer.
were at K.I. Sawyer that were then moving on. And I did that the entire 4 years. I ended up specializing with officers because that was even the more complicated of the two. Within personnel, when you're in that specialty, the Air Force is required after 2 years to allow you to move to another part of that specialty in order for you to broaden your expertise within that specialty for the future for the Air Force. At that 2-year point, my boss, Master Sergeant Macario, probably the best boss I ever had anywhere, Mike Macario, he came to me and said, "Dave, you know I got to give you the opportunity to leave. I can't. I really need to keep you here. You know, this is a difficult job," and there were 2 of us. My best friend, Steve Quackenbush, he came to both of us and said, "What would it take for you guys to stay put? I know it could hurt your career, but I really need you to stay." It's simple for me. I said, "Boss, I need 2 things. I work directly for you, not someone else, and I need to be able to go to school at night. And you recognize that I need to be out of here at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we work 7:30 to 4:30 in order to get class at night. And I will nights I don't have class, I'll work later for you. I'll come in weekends, but that's what I need. Dave, you got a deal. So that's how I ended up staying at the very same job, very same desk the entire 4 years.
At the K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base in Michigan, did you live on base or off base or part-time, both ways?
I lived off base when I first got there as a married airman. You are allowed, they provide a little bit of money towards off-base housing and food if you're married. And so I went up to KI and got a place I rented a place and then went back and picked up my wife who was still over in the Detroit area in Clawson with her parents. So I picked up my wife and son and we went back up there. So we lived off base for probably about a year and a half in Little Lake, which was just maybe about 5 miles, 7 miles just south of the base. And then when I became an E4, a senior airman, then you're allowed to move into base housing. And K.I. Sawyer had beautiful base housing. We were in a multiplex, a brick multiplex, with a basement and an upstairs, and it was just gorgeous. And we were able to be in that multiplex for almost 2 years, the last 2 years we were in.
Let me ask you about a little more of your service. Did you receive any particular awards or medals during your service in the Air Force?
Not really. It was a time of peace, so there wasn't a whole lot going on that way. You get everybody gets if you served honorably, you get a couple different medals for being a good doobie and not being in trouble and not getting kicked out or all that kind of stuff. But that's just, everybody gets those. Interestingly though, you and I were talking a little bit about wartime and some of that, and I remember probably this was maybe about 2 years in, when you join the military, I think maybe we all experience this to some degree. When you join the military, it's hard to sometimes recognize what you're doing, because you're in the middle of this and there's all the politics of working in any job, wherever you go, and all the personality differences and learning how to take orders, and sometimes take orders from people that don't know what they're talking about, and sometimes that's very difficult. And I remember at that 2-year point wondering if I was going to make it, thinking, God, this is just crazy. Sometimes what they were asking you to do just didn't make any sense. And I went to a movie on base one night. I can't remember what the name of the movie was, but it was about the Vietnam era, and it was about some guys that were playing Russian roulette with a gun. And at the end of that movie, I had an aha moment, and I thought, you are sitting at K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base. You're living in a multiplex. They're supporting your family. They're helping you go to school. And you're getting wound up and complaining because you work with some idiots. You have nothing to complain about. There are a lot of guys that had it so much worse in a time of war. And so for me, that movie was like an aha moment. And I got grateful like overnight about all that the Air Force was given back to me.
Were you ever deployed from Sawyer for any short
TDYs?
duty?
No, I was involved with a lot of folks that were TDYing in and out, and of course with outbound assignments. If they got a TDY at the same time that we were prepping for their assignments, then it could be a problem. But no, I never did have to go TDY anywhere. Again, I said this a little bit before, I sat at the same desk with the same typewriter and for my entire 3.5 years that I was at K.I. Sawyer.
Let me just ask you a little bit about K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base. What was the mission of the base there?
K.I. Sawyer was a SAC command, Strategic Air Command. And so at K.I. Sawyer and across the entire United States, you had SAC bases. And our job, the job of the SAC bases, was to protect America from the north, from Russia. And so we had, at any given time, there was at least one bomber and one fighter jet in the air at all times. And they were, with the other SAC bases, they were out there protecting the perimeter of the United States to make sure that no enemy plane crossed into the United States air territory.
David, what sort of co-workers did you work with? I mean, did you get along well with them?
Yes. All of the guys and gals that I worked with were really, really good people. I am still in contact with one who probably became my best friend while in the Air Force. His name is Stephen Quackenbush. And he went on to, he and I both went to Northern at night to work on our degrees. He already had his bachelor's. He was working on his master's. At the end of our 4 years, as I was getting out of the Air Force, he was going to OIC and actually became an officer. He became an officer. He wanted to become an officer in their social actions group, but there really was no room. There wasn't a need. There was a need for another officer or more officers with the, golly, what is, it would have been the, trying to remember what the name of the unit that he went to. It was the unit where the Minutemen, the Missilemen. So he went to officers training school and put in another 14, 15 years as an officer and retired after almost 20 years. I think it was, he was like at 18 or 19 years, and it was financially more prudent for him to leave than to stay. So, and so he did most of the rest of his career as a missileman. And then he was able to go into social actions, which was what was his passion, which was interesting because we both ended up working in a substance abuse counseling setting, him for the Air Force at the time, and then when he got out of the Air Force, he's in Colorado. He went to work for a substance abuse agency in Colorado, which was, again, we shared that commonality. So Steve Quackenbush is probably my best friend. And I mentioned before, Mike Macario, he was my boss, Master Sergeant Michael Macario, and probably the best boss that you could ever have. And he really was good at his job and great at working with a bunch of young airmen, trying to get them to do their jobs and in a very kind of stressful kind of situation. But everybody that I worked with, Mike Crow became a chief master sergeant. I kind of lost track with him, but he became a chief master sergeant before I lost touch with him. So he did an entire career with the Air Force. And then there were lots of other folks that got out after 3 or 4 years, like I 4 years, like I did. And I can't remember all their names, but great relationships, great people, and I really enjoyed. When we were kind of prepping for this little project, this interview, I found some things that I hadn't looked at in a while, and one of them is a picture of a B-52 bomber, and everybody in personnel actually signed my B-52 bomber picture that I have and has been hanging on my wall since I got out in 1980. Wherever we've lived, I've had that in one of our rooms. But I had an opportunity to sit through and read through it and bring back some really good memories.
Did you have employment set up before you left or discharged from the Air Force?
You know, Air Force was the first time that I ever had all that paid vacation. You know, with the military, you get up to like 4 weeks that you're earning all the time. And so I saved up my vacation so that the last 30 days I could walk from K.I. Sawyer all the way down to Belding, where my parents was. But the deal with my wife was I had to have a job first. Well, I didn't. I had applied for many jobs in different places, but didn't get anything. So I spent that last 30 days, that was paid leave. So I was still in the Air Force, but I was still looking for a job. So I didn't have anything lined up, but I had 2 different opportunities. And one of those interviews turned out positive, and I got hired in. And that was with Newaygo County as the juvenile probation officer. That was
here in Michigan?
That was here in White Cloud, Michigan, for Newaygo County. And my boss there, Bruce Euchre, another great guy and great boss. But yes, so the Air Force, and the way that they allowed me to get out of the Air Force with that 30 days paid vacation time, allowed me to line up a job. So by the time I actually got out of the Air Force, I started the first day I got out of the Air Force, officially released, I started with Newaygo County.
Have you joined any veterans organizations after leaving the Air Force?
You know, I really haven't. I've thought about it a few times, and I just really never have. I currently am volunteering. It's only once a year, and it's just an afternoon or a day. But it's a program that I feel pretty excited about. American Dunes is a golf course over here in Grand Haven, and they all of their profits, all their proceeds after they pay for their staff and all that for running this golf course, goes to veterans' families, veterans that lost their lives in war or while on active duty. Their families can apply for assistance through this program. And Folds of Honor is the name of the program. And a really neat thing. American Dunes has a wall of honor that you can walk through, and each hole is dedicated to a veteran that gave their life. So a pretty neat program, and so that's about the only thing I've been doing with it, but I really enjoy doing that.
How long did you spend with Newaygo County?
I worked for Newaygo County when I first got out of the Air Force. I worked for Newaygo County for 2 years. From there, I went to work at Life Counseling Services, the executive director of it was a substance abuse counseling program. And while working at Life Counseling Services, my dad, who was working for the Department of Corrections, called me one day and said, "Hey Dave, I know you've been trying to get in with the feds. I just saw an opening in West Michigan, in Grand Rapids. You might want to jump on that right away." And so I did. I made an application with U.S. probation.
Now, you would have had a security background done. Do you recall who might have done your background?
I believe his name was Wallace Erickson. I'm not real sure. But that's what I recall. The first time of course I didn't know you at that time, but I got to know you because of my boss at the time, Carol Erickson. She was a supervisor with U.S. probation, and the person who was doing all of my training is married to Wally. So I got to know that afterwards, but yes, I believe it was the FBI agent Wallace Erickson, sir.
I just wanted to get that in there. And how many years did you have with U.S. probation before you retired?
I worked with U.S. probation for 22 years. I retired as a SUSPO, a supervising U.S. probation officer. I worked as a line officer in supervision for 7 years. And as a line officer in U.S. probation at the time, you did both pretrial services office, supervision, and pre-sentence work. I then became the drug and alcohol treatment specialist because of my degree and my experience in substance abuse counseling. I became a specialist for the office, developing contracts for our parolees and probationers to get counseling, but also to do drug testing to make sure that they didn't get re-involved, and to provide mental health counseling and even sexual abuse counseling. And I did that for about, 10 or 14 years. And then I became a supervisor for the supervision unit for the Western District of Michigan, and ended my career as a suspo for supervision.
Then after retiring from the U.S. Probation Office, where did you work after that?
Well, when I first retired, I thought about hanging a shingle out as a therapist. In fact, when I went to work for the feds, I always thought I would go back into private practice. And so I did all the prep work to do that. And so I'd set up Kinsman counseling and started working in that direction. But on the way to that, I went to work for Wedgwood Christian Services, and I ran their outpatient services for about a year and a half. While working for Wedgwood, I ran into a buddy from church, and he asked me if I would be interested in becoming a guardian ad litem. And at first I wasn't real interested because I was finally working in my chosen field of counseling. And I said, well, yeah, let me go with you. Well, I did a ride along with him and did a couple interviews with him, and realized in the course of those interviews I'm having to sit on my hands and try to be quiet. Because I want to jump in and start interviewing. And I think going back to probably my Air Force time, I first started learning how to interview people and talk to people and encourage them to converse with me and share information, and which all really helped me in my job as a probation officer, as a therapist. All those things that I learned during that Air Force time were helping me. So I went to work with Kent County Probate Court. I had a private practice called Kinsman Counseling, and so I was a contract employee and could get assignments sent to me from the court. So persons that were filing petitions with Kent County Probate Court for guardianship or conservatorship for loved family members who were maybe had a car accident, or maybe they were dealing with dementia or Parkinson's and cognitively could no longer handle their own financial situation or business, or make medical decisions. They would file a petition with the court, and then we would become involved in investigating whether that they truly needed a guardian, and if this person that was filing that petition was an appropriate person, or the person that they were recommending. And again, I go back to my Air Force time and my U.S. probation time, which all prepared me to do this guardian ad litem work, this interviewing that went on. So I did that for another 15 years, and I just retired out of there about April of last year. And now totally retired.
Oh, at this point then, David, let's record the photographs here. We'll get a video recording of photographs that you had from the Air Force, and I'll ask you about them. Okay,
good.
David, what's the significance of this photograph?
This is a B-52 bomber, which K.I. Sawyer, we had two planes at K.I. Sawyer, the B-52 bomber and the fighter jet. And of course, these two planes, there was always one up in the air. So one of in the BX, you could buy, it was our store on base. And in the BX, they had some stuff that represented K.I. Sawyer that moms and dads of airmen and stuff could buy and bring back home. So my friend Steve Quackenbush, he went and bought this B-52 bomber, and then he went around and got all the people that we worked with to sign that and to send me a note. I've had that since I left the Air Force, and it's been on a wall in my home since 1980.
David, where was this photograph taken?
So that was our squadron, 3711, at K.I. Sawyer, or I'm sorry, at Lackland Air Force Base. So that was my basic training group of guys.
And where are you in there?
I am right there.
Front row center.
Front row center, yeah.
David, who is this a photograph of?
Well, that is me right out of basic training, I believe. Probably one of the very few times that I was in full dress blues with the hat and tie and the coat and everything.
David, what is this document?
This is your DD-214. Anybody who is in the service, when you get out of the service, this is the document that you will use the rest of your life to prove that you served your country honorably. And so all your veteran benefits that you get throughout the years of your entire life, this is the document that you need to prove that you served your country and you did it honorably.
When did you get this plaque, David?
When I got out of the service, they had a big party the last day that I was in. And they gave me that big picture of the B-52 bomber, and then all the staff were there and the officers, and everybody congratulated and wished you well. So the base commander was there, and because I worked in the same building as the base commander, I don't think he went to everybody's, but because he was in the same building and I did officer assignments, he actually provided that to me. And that was just a plaque that they give you at the end of your enlistment saying, thank you, you did a good job, and here's something to remember us by.
Well, David, thank you for describing those photographs. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
You know, you probably, maybe any of us that have lived long enough to be older now, I don't know that I could appreciate what being in the Air Force was while I was in the Air Force. Maybe at that time of life, you just don't really get it. But over the years, I think you appreciate, number one, that you were allowed the privilege of serving your country. And what a great privilege that is, but also what a great country this is. Again, maybe that comes with age, but I know I didn't appreciate it as much then as I do now. Very great.
Well, thank you for your service in the U.S. Air Force. You know, all of our small contributions add up over time, and
Yeah.
that's what the military is all about.
Thank you for your service as well, Mr. Erickson.
Well, thank you for your recollections here, and particularly in your participation in the Veterans History Project. This interview is part of the Library of Congress's Veterans History Project, and also is being done under the auspices of the History Department at Grand Valley State University, Allendale, Michigan. This is the end of the recording. And again, thank you, David.
Thank you, Wally.